So wait, why are you here? You eat pretty damn good.
I'm here because I have been having like chronic issues with my stomach for the past month, where I'll eat something and my stomach will blow up like I'm 9 months pregnant, and I'll get really gassy and uncomfortable and a lot of pain. And last night it was like the end of my rope. It was the worst. So I decided to come to the hospital to get checked out. And the crazy thing is the things that I'm eating are health foods. So like protein bars, like if I have a protein bar, I'll get that reaction. If I have whey protein, like protein powder, if I have peanut butter, any nut butters, and hummus. What else? Yeah, like granola. I had this paleo granola the other day and it almost killed me. So I'm not eating anything bad. I'm not eating any junk food, but I'm just figuring out what works for me, and I don't want to be back here again. So hi everyone. I am joined today with my dad, Dr. Phil Pappas. He's a nutritionist. Today, we're going to be talking about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, SIBO, which stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And I recently had a case of SIBO that I dealt with for quite a few months, for about 6 months last year. And it was pretty hellacious, and I learned a lot. I did a lot of research. I had a really hard time with it. It was very frustrating. For a couple months, I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I constantly was bloated and dealing with a lot of cramping and stomach issues, and looked like I was 6 months pregnant. Actually helped me through this, and so today we're going to share some information with you in case you're going through it or you know somebody who's going through it. So Dad, what is SIBO?
Okay, so it stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and of course this would be in the small intestine for the most part, and it's the excess bacteria kind of overgrowing bad bacteria in the small intestine.
Yeah.
And of course, that's going to create some issues. And very often people see bloating and diarrhea and malabsorption problems. They might lose weight. They'll start having nutritional deficiencies. But this is has a wide range of symptoms. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot to go over. And we'll take this apart piece by piece.
How do you diagnose SIBO?
Okay, so there's 3 tests right now. There's the SIBO test that it's the hydrogen breath test, and you blow into a little tube, and that's a very effective test. It gives us pretty good information, and very often, we can identify SIBO with that test. But often doctors feel like they need a backup test. There is a organic dysbiosis type test, and there is a stool test. Stool tests are used for all kinds of digestive issues. Mm-hmm. So sometimes the doctor will do a SIBO and he'll do a stool test. That way he has, there's a guarantee, or at least more of a guarantee, that you've diagnosed SIBO correctly.
So the risk factors of SIBO.
Well, a lot of people can have, these are very general risk factors, and some are very specific. But if you have low stomach acid, so as we age, our stomach acid goes down. You may be taking acid-lowering drugs. All this opens you up to SIBO. Irritable bowel syndrome. For some reason, people with irritable bowel, the bowel's never quite right. They seem to have a tendency. Along with the other digestive problems like celiac and Crohn's. If you've had a prior bowel surgery, there's all kinds of things that go wrong. If you're diabetic, this can happen. Mm-hmm. Diabetics' digestive systems aren't real great, so they can get SIBO. One of the big ones, multiple courses of antibiotics. Mm-hmm. Antibiotics cause SIBO a lot, often.
Because it messes
well, it just
with your
kills
gut
good
flora?
bacteria,
Mm-hmm.
and then bad bacteria come back and overwhelm you, and that's not what you want. Oddly enough, there are several antibiotics, not the typical ones that you would see, that can actually kill the bad overgrowth and make you healthy again, and I think you took one of them. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Anybody who's had organ system failures, cirrhosis of the liver, just a poor diet and lifestyle, if you're alcoholic, even smoking has been suggested as a risk factor. If you take a lot of prescription drugs, clearly a risk factor for this. Nobody's going to tell you that when when you're up to 5 or 6 prescription drugs, suddenly your gut's a mess. Well, it's what happened. If you've ever had food poisoning, eating too many raw foods, which is a problem you might have had. Raw foods need to be washed thoroughly, but even at that, just the raw food itself produces a lot of gas, and before you know it, you've really got a problem. So if you have SIBO, better to really cook all your vegetables.
Yes.
And that's a good warning, really.
Mine, we think, was brought on by eating raw vegetables because I was doing a ketogenic diet. I was getting sick of just eating so much meat, and I was like, how can I do keto in more of a vegan way? Is that possible? So I started to consume mass amounts of raw vegetables and, like added oil to them, and was eating like nuts and seeds and just eating a lot of like peppers and tomatoes and cucumbers. And I would always eat the skins and the seeds because I thought that was like healthy, like I was eating the reproductive parts of the plants.
Yeah.
And then I come to find out that it's not so great for you, and that it's really hard to break down, and it kind of just will build up in your intestines.
Vegetables, because of their cellulose component, are much more harder to digest than, say, meat.
Yeah.
So, you'll see your dog put his nose up on some vegetables, but he'll chomp down meat without any trouble because he digests it rather well. And we are the same way.
Right. I found out that the skins and the seeds of plants contain something called lectins, which is a protein, and it's the plant's defense mechanism against predators. So it will give you a adverse reaction. Like, it can make you feel sick, and it can make animals sick, and that's why instinctually they will stay away from those parts. And I learned the hard way, and now I cook all of my vegetables. I very rarely will eat, raw vegetables.
If you have SIBO, you have to cook your vegetables and keep your eating fruit to a minimum.
Yeah.
Never eat dried fruit if you have SIBO.
Yeah.
So there's some ideas on SIBO. We might want to talk about the symptoms, kind of categorize those.
Yes.
Nausea, bloating. You had bloating, I'm sure.
Oh, like that was the most severe of all
Bloating's
the
usually the big one.
symptoms for me.
Nausea, vomiting sometimes. Diarrhea often.
Yeah.
Constipation rarely. Malnutrition, well, that might be in the later stages along with weight. Well, weight loss you might notice, after a couple of weeks of this. Did you notice weight loss?
I didn't have weight loss at all. I felt like I had weight gain because I felt
you
like I
felt bloated.
I was always bloated.
All right. But then there's some things that aren't so obvious, like joint pain, fatigue, skin, all kinds of skin things, skin rashes, eczema, anything in that category you got to be worried about. Then there's some really odd ones, like you can actually have depression. And I'll tell you why that is. At least I'll tell you my...
Because you're always bloated.
Well, I'll just tell you
It's depressing.
from my education. Because you have such dysbiosis, you're unable to produce enough B vitamins to maintain your emotional stability. That's what I think it is. And I think you'll find there's support for that idea. Rosacea, something that plagues people, skin issue. So skin issues are a big thing.
Mine was definitely, it was like chronic bloating, and then just severe pains in my stomach, especially when I would have anything with sugar alcohol in it, like the erythritol and the xylitol.
That's kind of when I said stay away from dried fruit. They're very high in sugar, so and you don't
any
want to eat a lot of fruits every
yeah.
day. You'll eat maybe 1 or 2 fruits. That's it for when you have
Fruit
SIBO.
would kill
If
me.
that, you might not be able to do it.
Fruit would kill me, and then anytime I ate a vegetable, I would be like dead. And it's so confusing because when you're eating vegetables and fruits, you think that you're doing something good for yourself and they're really healthy, and you are, but not everybody can digest them the same. And I really do think that vegetables, you should cook them, and you won't run into these problems. But I was very depressed, but part of that was because it was like
Probably a lot of pain.
it was a lot of pain. It was it was depressing. Every time you eat something, you feel like crap when you're eating healthy.
Yeah, it's hard to keep up.
Yeah, and then I'm really I take care of my body, and I'm always try to be really fit, and then my stomach is huge, and it's like, well, why when I'm eating so healthy? But it was such a relief to find out what was wrong with me, and then come to a solution, which brings us to how to treat SIBO.
Well, your doctor put you on Xifaxan.
Yes.
Which is probably the newest and maybe the best antibiotic. It's an antibiotic. It's a little different type of antibiotic. It's made for this.
It was amazing. Within
It
4 days,
yeah,
everything went away.
If you don't want to use this, or you want to use some adjunct therapy, and by the way, if you go to earthfoods.us, you'll see all these products that I'm talking about. And today we're actually sponsored by earthfoods.us.
Oh, that's right. Yes, we are sponsored by earthfoods.us.
Yeah, we hope you visit earthfoods.us. But the products I'm going to tell you about can go with the Xifaxan, or if the doctor may have given you one of the tetracyclines, like doxycycline might work for this. There's some others that most doctors don't even remember anymore that were used for this years ago, but I think Xifaxan is the one that's most up to date and works. What I use, first of all, probiotics are not that good at this, except for one that I found works very well, and it's not your typical probiotic. You'll find that at earthfoods.us, and that is Saccharomyces boulardii. It's not live bacteria. It's actually a yeast-based, healthy yeast-based product that competes with bad yeast. Can be very effective for this.
Yeah.
Will raise your immune system while you're using it, and that's kind of a problem with SIBO. Your immune system gets kind of down from the malnutrition and all the other ramifications. What I found is that berberine, what was that? Berberine is a wonderful herb that I use for a lot of conditions. But berberine works, works with Xifaxan, first of all, to up the kill rate of bad bacteria. But berberine in and of itself can kill a lot of these bad bacteria. Simply oregano capsules or oil.
Yeah, excellent. I use the oil.
Yeah, and I have, if you go to earthfoods.us, you'll see berberine by maybe Douglas Labs and by Designs for Health. We have a nice oregano capsule there by Designs for Health. Olive leaf extract.
I took that too.
Very, very effective at this. The allicin part of garlic, usually when there's a garlic product, garlic capsules, it's usually heavy in allicin. That's the more active part of garlic. That does a nice job for this. There's a Podarco. I forgot about Podarco. But one thing I do like to do when there's loose stool involved, too much water in the gut from this, I like to use combinations of psyllium fiber and apple pectin. And there's a product on the website. It's a Now product, and it's a psyllium apple pectin combination product. So why do I bring that up? Because psyllium absorbs all that excess water like a sponge, and it will make you feel better. Other thing about, and apple pectin too, apple pectin is kind of nice and gives you a little, kind of soothes out the gut. It's actually pretty effective. So these are soluble fibers that, you know, they're not systemic, they just go through you. So you're absorbing water, you're creating a more gelatinous mass, and then you're also preventing cramping.
Yes, I had a lot of cramping.
So a lot of doctors forget that. But because I spent a lot of my early years working just with irritable bowel patients, works great for irritable bowel. Works good for this, just to get over the symptoms. You have to try it and see. So that's the kind of approach that I have. And it's a little more aggressive, I think, than what the doctor does. A lot of times when the antibiotics don't work, people come to me and they say, you know, I took the antibiotics, what do I do now? And that's when I start working on them that way.
Yeah. Also, glutamine and turmeric.
Well,
so glutamine for your gut, you know, obviously.
Glutamine might be like after you get things under control, you rebuild your gut with glutamine. Keep on the Saccharomyces boulardii. You might have to add also, once you start feeling a little better, you want to rehabilitate your gut. You could use glutamine. There is a probiotic that's not, again, this is another odd probiotic. It's not even retail. You would have to get it from a professional. It's on our website under Designs for Health, and it's called Probiophage DF. This is really another very unique probiotic. Yeah. And it has the ability to kill gram-negative infections, particularly E. coli. So what's so big? You know, what's the big deal with that? If you can keep your gram-negative bacteria low in the gut, the SIBO, it's easier to get rid of the SIBO, and your gut will get healthier sooner. And there's some live probiotic in there to replace, the bad bacteria with good bacteria. So these are all, good ways to approach it. They're all healthy ways to approach it. And I invite you to go to earthfoods.us and actually see those.
Check us out.
Yeah.
So that is so important, obviously, how you treat it, but also what you eat, because when I took the medication, the Ziaxaphen, and then I started to eat all those foods that were causing the SIBO in the first place, or I was reacting to like eating raw vegetables again, and I didn't understand that, you can't do that. Like, you really have to watch what you eat even after you take the medication, because it can come back. SIBO does come back in a lot of people. And and I
think it's important to add that don't think you just throw a probiotic in there. Actually, probiotic, buy something off the shelf probiotic could make it worse.
Yeah, because it's just giving your gut more bacteria. You don't need any more.
It's not what you need at that moment.
Right.
And that's why Saccharomyces boulardii may be a better choice. But again, when I mentioned berberine and oregano oil, olive leaf, that type of thing, those things work very well.
Really, really well.
And by the way, I'd mentioned Podarco. Podarco is something you might have to stay on for maybe like a year.
Yeah.
Or even berberine.
I took all those supplements. I haven't had any issues since then, knock on wood. I feel amazing, and I'm so grateful for that, and all my bloating went away and all the pain, but I really watch what I eat now. I always cook all of my vegetables. I stay away from sugar, alcohols. I eat a lot of meat, and I eat a lot of cooked vegetables. I don't really eat much in the way of fruit, and I stay away from nuts and seeds and dairy.
Think what you did is, it's a perfect example. Don't overdo anything.
Yeah, I learned my lesson the hard way.
It almost tells, like when I see people that eat, I've had people tell me they eat pasta for 3 meals a day. Leftover spaghetti from the night before or whatever.
Yeah.
And
everything
you cannot eat wheat at every meal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a bad idea. Things are going to go haywire.
Yeah, and definitely carbohydrates I would stay away from if you have SIBO, because that's just feeding the bacteria in your gut.
Well, sugar feeds this, and of course carbohydrates break down into sugar very quickly.
There's so much conflicting information out there, and you can go to 10 different websites, and they're all going to have different SIBO food plans for you to follow, and they're all conflicting. Even what the doctor gave me, he told me that I can have waffles and pancakes, and those were on you can eat these things, and oatmeal, and it was just really weird, and so you have to listen to your gut and see how you react. But I mean, there's just certain things that you should stay away from.
Meat is not the enemy. You can fill up on meat. Don't overeat it, but you eat some meat. Some people will do good on rice.
I did a little bit of rice with like turmeric on it, rice with turmeric, which was nice. And I would do a lot of bone broth. In the beginning, I did a lot of fasting because I just wanted to give my gut a break from digesting, and that really helped. Eggs were fine, and I'm just like so grateful today to feel better and to be over this ordeal, and like I just really want to share this information with people. I took Romaxaphen first, and within 4 days, all of my symptoms went away. It was like amazing. And then the doctor told me to follow up with Ziaxaphen, and I took it for a month and a half, and then I started to have severe migraines. I've never had migraines in my entire life, and I was having like ocular migraines, and went to an optometrist and got tested for everything. He said I was fine, and he said it was probably from the drug. Then I stopped the drug, and all the migraine went away. So it was related to that.
They do have side effects because they're a little different than amoxicillin or something you would take for a strep throat or pneumonia or something like that, bronchitis. These are different types of antibiotics. In fact, the two you took are from basically the same group of, in the pharmacology, they're basically the same. But they do have some unusual side effects. And one thing about using berberine and oregano oil, olive leaf,
there's no side effects.
There's very rarely do people get side effects. Now, because you have a gastrointestinal condition, you have to check things out. Take one thing at a time and see what works for you. Same with the foods. Eat one food at a time until you see what you tolerate.
Yeah, which is why I really like fasting, because if you fast and then you just eat one food, like you just eat a sweet potato or just eat an apple after you fasted, then you know if you react to it, you know what you're reacting to, you know.
And by the way, you just said an interesting thing. White potato, not so good for this because it is such a starchy thing. However, sweet potato works pretty well for this.
I did eat
and an apple a day is not a bad idea either.
If you take off the skin.
If you take off the skin, because you're going to get some the fiber from apple, which is apple pectin, and it just works really well. It makes you feel better usually.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Dad. That was really fun to talk about because I don't have to deal with it anymore.
Well, it's very convenient. You got SIBO, so we can do this video.
Exactly. But thank you for helping me through my hard time. Today's episode is sponsored by earthfoods.us. You can check us out. We're the family health food store and online, and we have the top quality supplements and vitamins for you, and all the things that we mentioned today are all on our website. And if you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. And thank you guys for watching, and thank you, Dad, for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you.